Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya, and it is now eyes, and I shouldn't say eye on politics, and with us is Dunstan Omari, our resident panelist. I'm told Jared Okello is held up somewhere in Kisumu, and Simeka is also held up somewhere. So today we have got Dunstan Omari to delve into this particular debate, the politics of sugar. Now, was there an agreement signed between the Kenyan and Ugandan government, at least with respect to the question of importation of sugar? That is the $1 million question as the Code Coalition retreats in Machakos to discuss that particular deal, among other issues, of course, the 2017 general elections. Dunstan, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Martin, and I feel honored to be present today for our viewers.
Yes, welcome. And that's where our beginning point is. Do you believe, because Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohamed says there was no deal signed. The very same day, President Uhuru Kenyatta says, I'd rather import sugar from Uganda and not Brazil, hinting at a possible agreement between Kenya and Uganda. What is your take on those particular viewpoints?
Martin, what we have is a game of semantics. One, the Foreign Cabinet Secretary says that there is no deal signed. That is a very conclusive statement that there was no deal signed. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if we go by the Amina's position, is that really there is no sugar deal with Uganda. When you look at the semantics of the president and the body language of the president says that I better import sugar from Uganda than Brazil. Mm-hmm. What he's saying is that if at all there will be any need, then the better option is Uganda. He has not confirmed that indeed there is any deal. That is a politician's language, that you cannot really narrow to it that he confirmed that indeed there is a deal. And therefore this is a political language that is aimed at not disclosing really whether there's a deal or not there's a deal. You know very well that no country, inter-country deals, intergovernmental deals that are made public. When Obama was here, there was no deal that was made public. Only for Kenya to realize that in the website of the US government, they had published the details of the deals. So Kenya came back fighting to say that, oh, these are the deals that we entered with the American government.
And that will be another question, because that's an issue that Code Coalition has. Number one, the negotiators, yes. Who are the people that were at the negotiating table during that particular deal?
Yes.
Led by Raila Odinga, they argue that those people were part of the cartels that are bringing issues in the sugar sector.
Yes.
Why is the government not keen, if we say that if you look at the practice by the United States of America, publishing those particular deals, why is the government reluctant to lay bare the contents of that particular deal to bring this whole debate to an end?
You know very well, as I've said, that we are looking, last week when I was here, I said that President Uhuru is looking at Uganda as the greatest supporter for his re-election in 2017. Politically, he must be with Museveni. Remember, Tanzania has shifted base to Raila's camp. So when Raila is raising the questions of the people who were part of the negotiations, the issue that is more bigger is a question of the sugar. The question of the sugar belt falls directly in the province of Code Coalition. Mm-hmm. Coast voted overwhelmingly for Raila. Mm-hmm. Sugar is in Ramisi, Tana River, and the others. Mm-hmm. Luo Nyanza, that's where sugarcane is. The Western province, the Luya nation as a whole, is where the bedrock support of Raila Odinga is. Kilgoris, part of Kilgoris, that's the Narok and the Maasais, that is actually where Raila got his votes. So the sugar belt has been the rock, the bottom line, mm-hmm. the bedrock mm-hmm. of Raila's support. Well, you look at the type of the deal that Raila wants to say is that it was a barter trade, that give us sugar, we will export milk to you. Mm-hmm. When you look at the producers of milk, the Jubilee nation is a milk nation. URP, 90% is the question of milk and livestock. When you deal with the pastoralists, communities that form URP bedrock, are the people who are benefiting from the sale of milk to Uganda. The president himself is alluded to be one of the shareholders of the Brookside company of milk processing industry. So that is why it is becoming so hot that the president must really look for everything possible to make sure that if indeed one of the Brookside managers was in that negotiation table, that shouldn't come out. And that's why you've seen that the deputy president has gone now saying that we are going to arrest people who owe Mumia's sugar money. They are trying to deflect the argument that indeed it is Raila who is the cause of this whole problem.
But then one will argue that why the interest with Raila Odinga, every time you look at every politician speaking about Mumia's sugar, every time they open their mouth, it is about Raila. But it's Western members of parliament who in fact snapped a meeting with the president. It's not about Raila, it's not about him raising the question, why one individual of a matter that is of has such monumental impact?
The national interest will be sacrificed at the theater of politics. Anytime Raila raises an issue, the ball goes back to him. Jubilee must paint that he's the cause of the problem. And remember very well that CORD has been setting the agenda for this country in terms of politics every other time. But the machinery in Jubilee has always succeeded to bring the backlash back to Raila. And that is how they've managed to survive. Anytime Raila raises an issue, they will always get something to put to him. For example now, it is no longer about the Luhya nation. It is about Raila. And very soon, within a week, the debate will collapse.
Do you believe, from where you sit, according to those who criticize the opposition leader, that Raila is the problem for who's facing the sugar sector, especially Mumia's sugar company?
Well, Raila is not the problem at all. Raila could not be the problem at all. Two, Uhuru could not be the problem at all. The question that is begging the $64 million question is, why doesn't the government put on the table the deal, if indeed there is a deal? Why don't they reveal who are the negotiators? And I do not see anything strange about the negotiators. You saw in Obama's routine, there were very many businessmen. Mm-hmm. So it set standard worldwide that government functionaries will be there. Then also the business community must be seated. Because really, government does not trade. Government protects the interests of businessmen and businesswomen of their countries. So what is the problem to me is that the Jubilee government's communication strategy is what is failing. It is not anticipating the reaction of the opposition to twist the story and give it a political angle. Mm-hmm. The meeting with the Western MPs could have been before the president went to Uganda. Two, the meeting could not have been for only the Western people. It could have been the whole of the Sugar Belt region, from coast, from the Kilgoris area, the Luo Nyanza, and the Western province. So that what is something like a caucus of people, of MPs that deal with sugar. Remember, the pastoralist communities have their own caucus. The coffee-growing MPs have their caucus. The tea-growing MPs have their caucus. Why will now this issue be a Western issue? That is where the whole problem is. And if I could have offered advice to the president, I could have encompassed everybody on board, those people where sugarcane is a cash crop.
And one will also argue that maybe the president wanted to... Do you believe he could have laid bare the contents of the deal during that particular meeting that he had convened at State House, and Western members of parliament said, no, we're not coming after all?
You know very well what the politicians are very crafty people. By them being called to State House and refusing to go, they have raised their value. If they'll be called the next time, the amount of what will be spent on them to go to State House will be higher. So the question that we have is, did they refuse to go to Parliament because of the interests of the public, or did they refuse to go to State House because they wanted their value to be higher, so that when they go there, they will be given something? You remember the issue about the Shikuku issue and the Ugali issue? Were they refusing to go because the amount of Ugali that was put on the table was not really what to mention? So that is the issue that is there. Two, are they blackmailing the president now that really, that you have already signed a deal? We need you to appoint 10 members to the cabinet from our region. We need these things from our region. We need these things from our region. Are they blackmailing the president? That is one thing that we need to investigate and really interrogate to know exactly the motive of them not going to State House.
I was looking at the local dailies over the weekend, and if there's anything that became very clear, is this perception that this purported Uganda sugar deal, that is Uganda-Kenya sugar deal, has galvanized coalition support base in Western Province, or in Western region, let me say, because of the county issue, and areas like COD and all those kind of things, especially since President Barack Obama left, because remember, he had bashed the opposition
very well,
before leaving.
Yes.
And we have a situation where Deputy President William Ruto spent last weekend literally in western part of the country. Yesterday he was in Matungu, just somewhere in Mumias. Do you think that do you agree that this sugar deal has galvanized CORD support? And do you think the Deputy President managed to do some damage control because of the backlash that may have come because of the sugar deal?
But you remember very well there's a time the Central Province MPs were saying their region, the TNA area, has been neglected. You remember the URP has always been saying that our area has been neglected. Reason being that the president, there are a lot of fires coming up from regions that didn't vote for him. And he must support that region first before he comes back home. When Obama was here, he totally destroyed the opposition. A mistake by Jubilee has given the opposition a strong force.
Some lifeline.
And I'm telling you, it is a strong force that gives Raila, look, today they are in, ODM is in Manzoni. Next week, they are having a CORD coalition. On the backdrop of the sugar issue, this thing is a political dynamite. Remember, the Luhya nation has never been having
united.
One voice.
Yes.
Will this be the only reason that will unite the Luhya nation? The Luhya nation has a big problem in the sense that they have several presidential candidates. Look at who is leading the onslaught on the sugar issue. It's not Wetangula. It's not Mudavadi. It is not Wamalwa. It is not anybody else. The Lusakas have gone quiet because sugar is the bedrock of the Luhya nation. So how long will they be able to play this game, this drum called sugar, is what is the issue.
And why are the people you're mentioning, the Lusaka, Wamalwa, in fact, I'm yet to hear any voice. Yes. I'm not to hear him speak.
Yes.
Why are they quiet, so you think?
The question is that you cannot appear to support your people to be economically marginalized. I saw a clip where the MP for Funyula,
Dr. Paulo
Otuoma, is saying there's nothing wrong about it. Otuoma wants to challenge Sospeter Ojamong for the governor's post. How he'll survive, it's just a matter of time. This is the heart of the Luhya nation. Sugarcane is everything to a Luhya nation. So anybody who will be seen to appear to support a deal that will marginalize them is totally destroyed. And that is why those operatives, the Marendes, the Jirongos, have kept quiet, because really this is a tsunami. Nobody will want to touch it. In my own perspective is that this has emboldened the opposition. This has given a fresh life to the opposition. The question is, for how long will it be the issue? Remember, the deputy president has camped literally in Western. Remember, the president had to run to Kisumu for a music festival. That tells you that there is serious cracks within the Western region. And if you look at today's dailies, you will see the number of the new registered voters. Surprisingly, there are now more people registered in Western Province, in Nyanza, in Coast, in areas perceived to be tilting towards ODM. So that is a wake-up call to Jubilee that it is no longer business as usual. They really have got to fight to ensure that they get the grip of the Western vote. A challenge that is there, the talk now going round is that will Ruto be a running mate of, will he be a running mate of Raila? That is the debate that is starting to develop. Is Ruto likely to challenge the president? If he does not challenge the president, is Ruto positioning himself to be a running mate of Raila so that he inherits that bigger constituency in 2022? So those scenarios are not, you can't wish them away. So the question of the president fighting for survival in Western is so critical. Remember, Kibaki survived in 2002? No, in 2007. In 2002, it was the whole country. In 2007, Kibaki survived by getting the Bungoma vote, by getting the Kisii vote, by getting, that is the Western vote, and getting some of the Coast votes, and the Central Province vote, and he became the president. Are we likely to see Uhuru now putting focus more on Western? Because that is a constituency that he can pick 1 million votes from. Yeah.
When we talk about the silent politicians, because you rightly put it, the likes of Jirongo, Lusaka, Wamalu are silent.
Yes.
I was reading a perspective from my very good professor, Philip Nyingura, over the weekend, and he talks about what he refers to them as elite consensus. That those who say that the cartels in the sugar industry are so powerful and they sponsor some of these politicians, so much that some may be hesitant to take a very firm position on this particular matter. Is it a possibility that they are shy of saying, listen, how do we talk about an issue that indirectly we are beneficiaries?
Well, you'll understand that in this country there are around 5 cartels that you do not joke with. The oil industry cartel, the construction industry cartel, the sugar sector industry cartel, the mass media cartel, and lastly, the political cartel. So those 5 cartels are so powerful that they will hold anybody at ransom. Remember, these people do not only fund the opposition, they fund both the sitting and the opposition. So that whoever wins, them they are in business. Since 1964, the cartels of the sugar industry have never changed. Yet governments are changing every other day. So that is how powerful cartels are. It is not only in Kenya. In America, the Bush family cartel is a serious cartel. The Clinton cartel is a serious cartel. So the cartels of the business sector runs the politics of every nation. And therefore, if Uhuru was led by the cartel of the sugars cartel to Uganda and entered deals, then that cartel is looking for deals to finance, either to repay their money they used in 2013 or to finance 2017. Remember, the elections are just near the corner. So the cartels are so powerful. That's why most of them, you cannot see politicians talk, especially when it's about the cartels. The people will be talking are people really who have no base.
When you talk about cartels, because I remember Deputy President William Ruto, while speaking in Busia, he was very categorical that we know these cartels.
Yes.
Are we likely to see a situation where these cartels are named?
You can't.
Why?
Let me tell you, you cannot name a cartel. You yourself who is saying that you are a beneficiary of that cartel's money. That is the issue. Why have these cartels never been named? Since 1964, since President Kenyatta took over power, the cartels have never been named. The reason being is that the cartels provide funds for both. Remember what happened with the Moi referral hospital?
Yes.
Once somebody tried to name the cartels, that story ended.
It fizzled out.
And it is no longer part of the agenda we're discussing.
But the question will be, how do you talk about you want to streamline the sugar sector that is usually brought down by cartels who you don't want to name?
Really, you see, the question that's what I'm saying, is anybody who wants to restructure the sugar sector not an import of sugar? Do we have a list of all the people who import sugar to this country? It will never be made public. It will never be made public. If it will be made public, it will be shadowy companies formed by lawyers, my colleagues, who you will never trace who the owner is.
More likely you will be told some Indian somewhere.
Yes. Remember the sugar sector and remember the Somali incursion. You cannot remove the sugar sector with the Kismayu issue. Sugar is the bedrock financial supporter channel for the Al-Shabaab and Chaco. Are we having a link between this deal and the deals that are going in Kismayu? Remember, KDF came on fire that it was involved in illegal sugar trades.
Yes.
Are we now seeing the same story coming from Uganda? Is it a tactical retreat for that sugar from Somalia to get its own way here? So really sugar is not an easy thing that you can really deal with it. And when you deal with sugar, you're also dealing with the question of drugs.
Where does drug come in?
Brazil produces sugar. The neighboring countries of Colombia, Peru, Nicaragua, and the others are the producers of drugs. So whenever you hear sugar trade, drugs are related to that sugar trade. The components are almost the same. So that's why you are saying it's a very passionate issue that every country must really fight not to allow importation of sugar. Why is Kenya allowing sugar to come from Uganda? There's a question. Why is Tanzania not importing sugar from Uganda?
The president says it makes logic to import sugar from Uganda and not Brazil.
So simple. Do you remember the Anglo listing, the golden bag issue? We were exporting what? Gold. Do we produce gold?
Gold in quotes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Does Uganda produce a surplus sugar? There's nothing. Uganda is an importer of sugar. So the question that we are dealing with is, who is using Uganda as a nation to import sugar, then pack it and bring it to Kenya? That is the biggest question. And
that doesn't say that Uganda produces surplus sugar.
There is rumor. The way there was rumor that Kenya, there's gold in Kakamega. In reality, there is no sugar enough in Uganda to be exported to this country. That is the position. Because you see, the production of sugar is not an accidental thing. The development of a product in a country is monitored by the Food Agriculture Organization of the World. You will not one day wake up and say, today we have 10 million bags of sugar. It is a gradual process. When did Uganda put that infrastructure systems in place to produce surplus? And if it is surplus, it will be around 100 kgs. Yes.
And that's the question that you asked there, and which CORD leaders also asked, that Rwanda does not import sugar from Uganda.
Yes.
Neither does Tanzania.
Yes.
Why Kenya?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that it is purely politics. Remember, the president of Uganda has stood firm with the Jubilee government at the ICC. Remember, the president of Uganda stood firm in 2007 with Kibaki. Remember, the president of Uganda has been the only president who has stood firm with the Jubilee and PNU arm of government. He has never been a close friend of the CORD coalition, especially the Raila issue. So it's purely politics. Why do I say this? CORD has always wanted to appear to make Uhuru to be a person who never cares about the interests of his citizens. You remember the digital migration issue?
Yes.
The licenses were given to foreigners at the expense of the Kenyans. So these are narrative that CORD is trying to have that, look, you were sold to China. Now you are being sold to Uganda. Tomorrow, where are you going to be sold to another country? I'm the only patriot in this country. But remember, Uhuru's argument is that he's a Pan-Africanist. We must trade, intra-trade within countries.
Because COMESA allows for this.
Because COMESA is, to him, key. But the question that we have, does Uganda have sugar for our own purposes?
Assuming Uganda had sugar for our own purposes, and politics aside, assuming Uganda had enough sugar, we import as a country, does that kind of move, or is that kind of move likely to paralyze the country's already ailing sugar industry? Cripple Mumias Sugar, for example, Nzoia, Muhoroni, and others.
Martin, if you ever travel that whole region of the sugar belt, that nation solely depends on sugar. If those industries collapse, then we are having the question of insecurity going up in this country. Remember, last week, serious terrorists were caught in Bungoma, having taken photos all over. You will understand why, because of poverty, Islam and terrorist ideologies are moving towards Western region. The question that we have is that unless we empower our citizens, unless we give them an economic base, we are exposing our youths to terrorism. So there is a link between destroying the sugar industry and the level of insecurity that we are going to face in this country. And that is why there is a huge cry that the youths of Western already are totally in poverty. What will happen now when we are saying that Kenya becomes a net importer of sugar?
But then one will also argue that Uganda deal or no Uganda deal, those particular youth you're talking about, or the Luya nation, or talk about Nyanza, because it's a sugar belt after all, there are already problems even without that particular Uganda-Kenya deal.
You see what?
So what is unique with Uganda that we are now crying foul over a matter that, after all, we import sugar from Brazil?
What was there is that originally it was smuggling, counterfeit sugar. Sugar used to come to Mombasa, ferried as transit sugar to Uganda, then back. That is why there was an anti-counterfeit agency created. That is why KRA had to put systems in place to ensure no sugar on transit gets back to this country. Raila is very clear saying that it is not the opposition's job to ensure counterfeit sugar does not land in Kenya. It is his duty to pinpoint that the sugar counterfeit is coming to this country. It is the role of government to protect citizens from any sugar coming into this country that is not allowed in this country. So the question that it's not a problem that started today. It is being compounded now that what was an illegitimate trade is now being made a legitimate trade. You remember the coffee saga of 1972, the Kabukube issue? Coffee from Uganda. Coffee was being stolen from Kenya, taken to Uganda, and brought back. That was the issue that we have now. Are we legitimizing destroying some nations based on the fact that the sugar now has been regularized and legitimized? That is why there is noise. And the problem that we have is that not even Raila himself, nobody is safe. He was the prime minister. The sugar industry collapsed under his watch.
But one will say he was the prime minister, he was not the president.
What did he do? He had executive powers. He had powers to make noise. Did he make noise? Did he make noise? Really, the issue that we have here is that none of the politicians is acting in good faith for the public interest. Are these people using the sugar industry to rebrand and rejuvenate their collapsed political essence? Is Jubilee trying to look for funds for the 2017 elections? That is the two questions that we need to look at. What is at stake for me and you and for the Kenyans that we have in all over this place? It is such a passionate issue that really if you look at the collapse of the coffee sector, coffee industry in Central Province and in Kisii has collapsed totally, systematically because of the cartels. Today, the farmers are terribly poor because of the collapse of the coffee industry. The tea industry has gradually been destroyed by the cartels in this sector. If the sugar industry is closed, what is the role of government and what is the role of the opposition in making legislation to protect our own industries? Every government and every opposition has a duty to protect that which is our own. Denmark, UK, the US, all countries worldwide are protecting the agricultural industry as we are exposing our agricultural industry into competition which we are not ready to compete.
And so the question will be, we are in agreement that cartel seems to be on both sides of the political divide.
Yes.
The Uganda deal, it is almost becoming likely that we're going to import sugar from Uganda because the deputy president has been passionate, especially over the weekend, with the Jubilee leaders, talk about National Assembly Majority Leader Ndwale, among others, defending sugar trade between Kenya and Uganda. Which way the sugar industry in this country?
The only which way is that the debate has started. And once the debate has started, the only problem is that we do not sustain the debate. This debate would have gone deep into making legislation to protect the sugar industry. The parliamentarians should have taken cue and seen the problems facing the industry, make proper legislation, a legal framework to protect the industry.
Are we saying we don't have proper legislation?
The legislation we have, I had a chance to, when I was doing my master's in law, I did the question of the sugar industry vis-a-vis the Kenya with the privatization issues. The challenges that we have are, one, we have never let proper managers run the sugar industries. All the managers are political appointees. The boards to the sugar industries are politically appointed by the ministers. This Honorable Boch has been appointed as the chair for the Privatization Commission. Some of these industries are supposed to be privatized, but you'll understand that it is not really per se privatization. It is selling these entities to political cronies for patronage. You've seen what has happened with KQ, a very vibrant national pride, a massive loss. Is that loss a recipe for it to be sold for the blue-boyed guys who want to buy these things? So that is the question that has always been, that we have never dealt with our industries based on the real interest of Kenyans. We've always looked for ways to make our friends, to make our partners have a pie of the national cakes. We need a real referendum in terms of the people waking up and defending that which is their own. And that's why I said, are we going to see Western MPs not going to State House next week? They will.
They will go.
They will have been given what they have been asking for, and they will go to Parliament.
But they only say that they will go to State House on one condition, or if they were to meet the president, it will be on one condition: the deal is made public.
Let me tell you, you'll not see the deal being made public. You'll not see the deal being made public unless they will agree that the deal that will be made public will be for the public consumption. But the real deal will never be made public. Reason being that you are dealing with a country that does not believe in the rule of law. Uganda is a country that does not respect the rule of law. Uganda is a monarch. Museveni's word is final. I was reading a story in the newspapers that the story about the sugar cartel started when he went to see chicken, open a farm of chicken, and the cartels asked him, now, Kenyans have refused us to have chicken going to Uganda. Even sugar does not go. Then he said, I'll deal with it with my personal friend. So the issue here is not about countries. The issue here is about friendship. Uhuru depends on Uganda. Uganda depends on Uhuru. That is the whole issue. So I do not see the deal coming out clean as the deal that was made. And probably the deal might not have been signed. Those are accomplished politicians. The deal will have been left with a lot of dotted lines. So what the Kenyans will be given will totally not be exactly what will be there. And also the question, I'm seeing it might be brought that it has some security implications. Once that is brought about, then you're told, oh gosh, you cannot be able to access these, because this one has a political and a security issues involved in it. And that ends. Yes.
And the other question is the question of smuggling, Dunstan. Yes. That we have so many people importing sugar,
yes,
rebranding it,
yes,
and calling it momias.
Yes.
And remember, we've been dealing with Brazil, and we are only talking about Uganda, our neighbor here.
Yes.
Do you think, what is it that we need to do to ensure that the question of smuggling is dealt with? Because you talk about cartels being such a hard nut to crack for the country. Are we giving them much leeway?
The cartels are part and parcel of the Kenyan police. The laws are there to arrest any sugar found to be smuggled in this country. Have they arrested? Who has given them an order not to arrest? The police force is there. The courts are there. The investigative arms of government are still in place. Parliament's investigatory powers are still in place. Nobody has raised the issue. So what we have is that so long as the political class is held captive by the cartels, no action. It's totally inertia that we are dealing with. And you've seen very well, the Anti-Corruption Commission is busy arresting city parking attendants, city council attendants. Is really that what we need for the Anti-Corruption Commission to be investigating, or to investigate how imported sugar, smuggled sugar, is Mumia's sugar, is landing in Nakumatt supermarket? You've seen all of a sudden all supermarkets have their own
sugar.
Where do they plant those sugar? Who buys it? Who sells to them? In the stores they are there. So what we are saying is that it is a country that is held captive. Remember what Obama said. The biggest challenge in this country is corruption. Until we deal with the question of corruption head on, we are not going anywhere.
And do we have that? Because the war on corruption seems to be slowly fizzling out.
Yes.
Do we have the muscle to combat corruption as we should?
I said it very well here that the only person who has the noise is the president. He does not understand the in-depth and the deep-rooted roots of corruption. The talk is over because everybody surrounding him is a cartel. So he will talk. There will be no implementation. He has realized that he has talked and he has talked nothing. You remember the question about the brew, the third generation of beer. He talked. It is over. He is learning the reality on the ground that unless he gets foreigners, unless he gets new generations of people surrounding him, he will not go anywhere. And let me tell you, you'll be surprised that the president was taken to Uganda. He was only told, this is what is supposed to be done. For you to get re-elected, you have no option. The president is a captive. The president of the USA was here and he said that for the first time, he was a captive of cartels in the US. Mm-hmm. He is breaking loose to come and greet his brothers and sisters here. So the captivity of governments is not a new concept. The only new concept is a clear strategy on how to break from that captivity. How do you break those cartels that have been there? Remember, the president had made that break, but slowly the talk about corruption has collapsed. So what will be the way forward? My way forward is that we really need, as a nation, to sit and realize that this is our country. The goods that are being destroyed belong to us. They don't belong to Uhuru. The cartels will be 10 or 15, very few. The cartels, remember the grain, the whole of the maize sector is dead. We import maize. Kenya used to be the basket of maize. There is no maize anymore. So what we are saying is that if we do not look at this systematic dismantling of our cash crops, we will remain a net importer of everything. And that is the direction the cartels want this country to go, that Kenya becomes a net importer of everything.
So that they have a field day.
You remember Nigeria is the largest exporter of oil, but is a net importer for local consumption.
Yes.
The oil leaves in Nigeria, goes out, then is imported back. That is exactly what we are now facing.
As we bring this to an end, Code Coalition is meeting in Manzoni.
Yes.
And one of the key things they want to discuss, apart from the 2017 general elections, is the question of this Kenya-Uganda sugar deal.
Yes.
What should we expect?
Well, we expect them to make a lot of noise, to rebrand themselves, to be the champions of the people, to be the people who are fighting very hard for the ordinary citizen. But behind the question I'm asking, are they also part and parcel of the cartels? Do we have very clear instructions that they are not the owners of companies that import sugar? Remember, the politicians have always said that there is no permanent enemy. What is there is permanent interests. As interests change, they will always befriend each other. Are they clean in this game? The deputy president has said they are part of this game. Not that Jubilee is in it alone, but they are also part of this game. You look at the people, the luminaries meeting in Manzoni, you understand that they have been in government for as long as I can remember. Were they part of the architectural design for these functions? One of the strong pillars of the Code Coalition, the leader of Ford Kenya, has not mentioned anything.
In fact, he has not spoken. I'm here to...
You have not heard him speak. The sugar sector being killed is in Bungoma. So that is the question we are asking that. You asked me, do we have silent elitists who will never talk because they are part of the conspiracy? That's the whole issue. Is the Code Coalition, when we are talking about the molasses plant, are we likely to have the molasses question joining the Mumias complex?
Because the deputy president already cashing on that,
Yes.
saying that, listen, but former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, you own Mumias Sugar Company.
Yes.
Of course, Raila says no.
He talks of 2 million.
Yes.
Is that not a debt?
He talks of 2 million.
Why hasn't he paid? That's the question we are saying. If he admits that he has 2 million, is he unable to pay? How many of his likes have that 2 million? If you're talking of 2 million times a million people, the company will collapse. All that we are saying is that the fidelity to what people are arguing should be tested. And I'm telling you, the Mumias sugar issue is going to eat much into the opposition. I strongly believe that, one, quite a number of these people have been appointed and given positions from Western Kenya must have been given the tenders to import sugar for them to join government. You will be surprised that that is the deal that is there, because nationally, whenever deals are being made by the president, by the state, they will always be for people from that region. When we are dealing with the NYS land in Yatta, we will never give somebody from Luo Nyanza that land. When we are dealing with some beach plots in those areas, we'll never get some people from Nyamira, where I come from, to be given that land. So when you are dealing with sugar, there's a likelihood the beneficiaries will be from the people from Western Kenya. And once the list comes out, who is going to import that sugar? Nobody talks. And that is why you've had the elite of Western has not talked. The only guy talking is the bullfighter. Because the bullfighter really has never known to sign deals. Yeah.
Who has a case in court?
Yeah, he has a case of defamation. He has never had cases of being involved in deals. He will only have cases related to his mouth, but not cases related to transactional issues. And that is why I'm saying that the silence from the luminaries of the Luya nation speaks a lot. Yes.
But are we politicking too much at the expense of the farmer, Dunstan? So that the plight of the farmer, some of them will say they have not been paid for as long as 1 year, but so much politicking over the sugar sector.
The problem in this country is that we talk so much. We do nothing. For 5 years, we've been talking. We are always here every Monday with you, Martin, and you remember we are talking about issues that are coming every day. We do not solve any. We have never had a conclusion over one agenda, from the IBC, from the insecurity, from the questions of schools, and all manner of discussions. The country is engaged in discussions, endless discussions, endless talk shows. Nobody is thinking about Wanjiku. That is the bad reality, that nobody is thinking about Wanjiku. But what I'm saying, Wanjiku should not wait for anybody to think about her. Wanjiku in 2017 has power to elect people who will think about her. Wanjiku goes for handouts.
That's the question that I wanted to ask you. Do you think that Wanjiku has got that power when, at the end of the day, the same people you're talking about will come and confuse Wanjiku?
Wanjiku has the power not to be confused. Wanjiku has a small garden and chicken to dig to generate money to eat. She does not need to depend on a handout of 10 shillings or 50 shillings. So long as Wanjiku will vote for Mari, because I have given her 50 shillings, that when I go to Parliament, I'm serving my interests. I'm recouping the 50 shillings I gave Wanjiku, and I'm looking for another 200 million to give Wanjiku. So Wanjiku should not expect any services from me. And that is actually what is happening today. That the nation is purely held captive because the nation has never elected people. If today, Martin, you went to where I come from in Nyamira and say you want to be an MCA, you must have 10 million.
You cannot do without.
An MCA salary is some around 100,000. How are you going to recover that money? That is the $64 million question that a presidential candidate in this country will use to the tune of 10 billion. What is his salary? So that is the whole issue that we have, that we need a discussion that will change, and as who appear on the silver screen, we have a role to tell the public that it is time we changed and nominated and elected people based on their ideologies.
But do you see that happen in this country, where the question of ethnicity plays a key role in our politics?
It will. The US was where we were. Britain was where we were. When every system collapsed, people asked this question: where did the rains start hitting us? And once we are almost reaching there, because nothing is going on. Everything is collapsing. We are seeing the nation closing. So people are starting asking now, where are we going to get anything? The MPs are very arrogant. They tell you, I bought you, don't ask me. So until we realize, and that is now the discourse that is coming up, very many people are starting to ask, and the answers they are being told is that it is your mistake. Don't ask us. That MP is not an MP. It is you who is in Parliament. That MCA, it is you elected that MCA. That president is you elected that president. That opposition leader who is fighting to rebrand himself, it's you who elected him. Can we sit as a nation and forget about our ethnicity? Can we sit as a nation, forget about where we come from? Because really, if you look at the poverty index in Central, it's the same poverty index in Luo Nyanza. It does not matter whether it's your tribe who is the president. What matters is, does that person make policies that are geared towards the national good? That is where we are heading to.
Thank you, Dunstan, for getting time to speak to us. Of course, I've been speaking to Dunstan Omari, with our resident panelists here. We've been talking about the politics of sugar that are here to stay. It will continue, of course. The Court Coalition is meeting in Manzoni, in Machakos, and some of the key issues they will be discussing is the question of the Kenya-Uganda sugar deal, apart from the 2017 general elections. We'll be keeping a close eye to bring you every detail as it happens from that particular end, and what the government will be saying about that particular deal that is emotive but as well controversial. My name is Martin Mwanja on behalf of the entire technical and production crew. See you tomorrow during another edition of the program. Good morning, Kenya. God bless. Laid Back is up next.